Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap podcast from SNXweave, where we give quick weekly recaps of news and important updates from the previous week from the Spartan Council and core contributors, as well as discuss what the Grants Council and ambassadors are up to, so let's get started. First up, SIP 252, to update the liquidation mechanism, is being prepared for deployment. Some edge cases have been identified that may prevent escrow from being liquidated for some accounts. These issues were discovered in some of the oldest escrow accounts from the Haven days, and the terms are defined by contracts that are not upgradable. Caleb said it's really only wallets that are associated with about $1 million of the total collateral base that are affected by this. The team is planning to go ahead with the current SIP as is while evaluating the best way to proceed with these wallets. Correcting the issue may require an additional SIP to migrate accounts to a new contract that allows for liquidation. Perps v2 continues to progress very well. One additional item that will likely be added to the scope is outlining how to get from V1 to V2, since there was some concern voiced during the SIP 280 presentation on upgradability. Leo is doing feasibility on the trade-offs for a clean break versus a migration of the current data. And once that's complete, there will be another call to discuss the options, followed by another SIP. Next, for atomic swaps, Adam asked why the focus on this additional V2X scope was worth it versus dedicating resources to V3. Caleb said this functionality will also be available on V3, so testing and iterating will improve the product now as well as in the future. And speaking of V3, the final couple of code merges have been approved and are in the process of being deployed to testnet. Cavalier said the UI is ready, auditors are digging in now, and the governance presentations are scheduled to happen over the next couple of weeks to cover the remaining SIPs. Hafif added that the most important action item right now is getting the spot and perp market implementations spun up. And as for SIP presentations, there were several last week, so let's briefly review them. The first was SIP 282 to replace emergency elections with the newly created intra-epic counselor replacement. This SIP by Terabellus proposes a counselor replacement process that will be used to fill specific council spots during an epic when necessary without a full re-election for the entire council. SIP 266 and SCCP 300 have established the concept of an election held outside of the standard quarterly election period. The process for such an election remains undocumented, so this SIP seeks to propose an intra-epic counselor replacement, aka a separate election for one or more specific counselors during the epic. The remaining participating Spartan Council members would vote to confirm the new member. Caleb suggested just auto-assigning the next available candidate to the Spartan Council instead of holding a vote. This will be discussed further. Adam suggested a compromise where the Spartan Council has veto power with a unanimous vote if the next ranking candidate is inactive or deemed unsuitable for the role. The next presentation was SIP 284 to pay DAOs from inflation. Presented by Artsy, this SIP proposes paying the DAO's monthly stipend from inflation instead of from the Treasury Council's assets. The motivation behind this SIP is to increase self-sufficiency for the DAO in terms of operating costs and to better align stakeholders. The Treasury Council currently handles the 47,000 SNX monthly DAO stipends, which unnecessarily gives them an additional layer of influence over other councils and reduces protocol autonomy. Currently, the process is done manually by the Treasury Council, which pays a predetermined amount to each council member. With this SIP, the SNX that is distributed to council and committee members will come from existing inflation, and the distribution method will be done weekly by the PDAO and distributed to existing council member NFT holders. Based on the presentation, this seemed to be a pretty contentious SIP among Spartan council members and the community. A question was brought up about whether the responsibility for setting the stipends would still remain with the Treasury Council. Caleb raised a concern that the manual process creates more awareness about the stipends being distributed, which means they can be easily changed to reflect market conditions. For example, if the SNX price were to go up to 20. He added that when it's coming from inflation, people tend to forget about it. Artsy requested feedback from the council on changes that would get the SIP approved. A few Spartan council members indicated they would be more likely to vote yes if the payments were automated. Artsy will be making some changes based on the feedback before the SIP is put to a vote. The next presentation was SIP 299 for minor upgrades to V2X to support V3 migration. DB proposed this SIP, which will grant a few special permissions to the Legacy Market contract. Legacy Market allows for users to migrate their collateral and/or redeem their SUSD to their V3 counterparts, while allowing for V2X to continue. DB said the SIP covers all of the technical changes that are required to successfully migrate V2 to V3. Caleb asked why users can't just burn their debt and remint on V3. And DB said it's for the same reason debt migration is being pushed. It's not strictly necessary, but it's better UX for most users. For accounts flagged for liquidation, however, the plan is to pause liquidations on V2X and force migrate any eligible accounts over to V3 for liquidation. DB said it's less disruptive to allow stakers to move over to V3 on their terms rather than forcing everyone to move over at once. Over time, the utility for SUSD on V2X will wane as integrators start making use of V3 debt, so there will be a natural incentive for active accounts to migrate sooner rather than later. The last presentation was SIP 303 for markets in V3. Presented by Afif, this SIP outlines the proposed construct of markets in V3. Creating a generic market interface helps cleanly separate concerns in the codebase and allows for greater composability with the protocol. Afif emphasized that permissionless markets won't be supported out of the box, but will be iterated towards following release. Nana asked if this poses any issues for atomic swaps. Afif said it doesn't break any of the use cases, but it would be a different implementation since it's a new version of the protocol. Afif added that V3 is being designed so that everything that currently exists in V2X will be possible, while also adding much more surface area for iteration and improvement. In Grants Council updates, TIP-CC is complete, and Matt and Mike now have funds available to tip 300 members. As for the NFT minting contract, the only outstanding item is the whitelist. There are multiple ways for wallets to qualify, but there's consensus on the council that a single wallet qualifying via multiple activities would only be eligible for one mint. Next, the team is putting together a funding request for the Treasury Council. Since the SNX price is low at the moment, it makes more sense to pay out grants and stablecoins. CT is proposing a request for an additional 50,000 SNX that can then be deposited in Aave and borrowed against to pay grantees. He'll be contacting someone from the Treasury Council to get the ball rolling on this. Lastly, Duck proposed an initiative using deposit delegations and pool together as another way to incentivize community activity using the protocol. As a reminder, Pool Together is a prize-based savings project in DeFi that allows users to delegate deposits to other wallets for a defined period of time. During that period, the wallets with delegated funds are eligible to collect rewards on those deposits. This initiative is currently in the brainstorming stage. In Ambassador updates, the team is doing a call today with Afif to talk about Perps V2, so be sure to tune in. On top of the Spartan Spaces, this call is part of their new initiative to elevate core contributors since they are the subject matter experts within the protocol. It's sure to be a very informative call. And that's it for today's updates. Be sure to check out our weekly recap blog post, share this podcast link, and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more about from SNXweave. Thanks for listening.